Continuing. Okay, the Paris National Guard crushed an uprising launched by Balquin's socialist. Yeah, France is politically unstable during this time period, very much so. Um, the short of it, and I don't know all of the, and I've read different things over the years, but don't know all of the elements. You have the rise of Napoleon III, who is, I don't know, trying to really reestablish, whatever, the legitimacy of the Bonapartist imperial France, as opposed to the Bourbon monarchist France or some form of republican government. France is an unstable situation, and culturally, politically, however you want to put it. The oh, are we still in the French turn? I get no, we're in our turn. Yes. Okay. I just wondering, but that's not the map, right? Okay, that is the map, but way off the effective parts of it. Okay, so here we're going to use artillery. There is not a national consensus, shall we say, as to. I guess I'll use artillery shells up here instead of manpower. Okay. Yep, better. For this whole war, well, it's not just this war. This is, shall we say, the brick that breaks the camel's back. Ultimately, for Bonapartism, for Napoleon III in particular, but it really, along with this is the French intervention into Mexico. And this is where we sort of get some connection with the American Civil War. America is unable to enforce by any means, but has already established the Monroe Doctrine. Basically, hey, Europeans, don't continue to grab up land in America, in the Americas. And this is, of course, coming out after Simon Bolivar's various revolutions in Latin America, Spanish Latin America, as opposed to Portuguese Latin America, that have thrown out primarily the Spanish, and do not, come and do interventions. Well, do not, try to grab up land, because we know you can, but don't. Well, America gets distracted with the Civil War. Mexico defaults on its debts, and unlike, say, mostly today, when a nation defaults on its debts, you go, whatever, and you throw up your arms and you just sort of walk away from all the money you've given them. No, they had debts to, I'm not exactly sure whether it was national banks or just the banks in France and in England, Britain, I should say. So Britain and France set up an expedition to go to Mexico, primarily around Veracruz, to secure the ports, because Mexico is just spamming out silver to the world. There is gold there, but it's silver, to the point that in China during this time period, right around now, the main sort of coastal currency along the coast is this Mexican dollar. The Mexican silver dollar, I should say, and not as in a paper thing, as a Mexican silver dollar. Before pesos, they actually had money that had value. And so it was a hard currency. Mexico is doing very well out of that, but they've defaulted on their debts. So they come in to try to come in and take over and try to recoup their losses, including the cost of the expeditionary force from Mexico, in running the custom houses for imports and exports to Mexico to siphon off the customs duties, shall we say. Well, Britain's relatively keen on this to get its money back. Napoleon is using it as an excuse to set up a puppet state colony type situation under Habsburg Maximilian, setting up as Emperor of Mexico, and that's sort of the final or the latter stage of it. I don't know quite exactly how it all goes, but eventually, I don't even know if Britain gets all of its money back, but they just say, "Yep, nope, we're out," and so Britain leaves, because once Britain realizes that this is Napoleon's sort of conquest dream, they're out. They decide, no, this is not the best idea. Can we do something else? And so that was a pretty good hit on them. Let's see if we can come down here and fully take out the force. Very good. And we're going to move you into that. So they get out, and then so this is going on. I think it's like 1862 or so is when they start this whole thing. Well, finally the war, I think it's 1866 or 1867, somewhere around in there. France finally withdraws all of its troops, and shortly thereafter, Maximilian is captured and eventually executed. He's a tragic figure. He actually, I think, believes that he is trying to bring good things to the Mexican people, not just, hey, I want to be emperor or some such thing. He's actually trying to bring what he sees as stability and whatnot to Mexico, because Mexico, well, still is a deeply flawed place. Let's just spend the shells, because we'll take maybe some time getting their shells back. Okay. Well, they can only get to there, so these guys will come to here. These guys will come to here. These guys come up over to there. And so the whole cost in lives and money, Mexico is just a sinkhole for that, from the viewpoint of France. So that doesn't, this is still the age, as one person, imperial wars or something. This is definitely still the age of imperialism and general acceptance of that concept. But I think people are sort of expecting some level of success for their imperial wars. Okay, this is a secondary supply source, but they are now fully cut off, so they can't, rail in, or because we've already taken the rails, but get in reinforcements. So Bitche, I don't know, is going to fall to our forces in time. Okay, now down here, yeah, this is. Do I want to spend half of one of these things to knock this? No, we have this here. That's right. Okay, that's the point of this. Good. Better. One more shell. Hoping, but okay. It was still way too expensive. First Brigade, yeah. You guys can come down to there. So you can just totally eliminate the force. That would be good. We don't want to lose Strasbourg, so we'll move him in there, even by accident. In Europe, Maximilian was considered a liberal. That term does not have a current negative. Yeah, I understand what you mean by that. Like, especially in the 19th century, it was actually a compliment towards a leading figure in the Ancien regime. He was a progressive. Yeah. Well, I don't know if he was a classic, or what we would call a progressive sort of today. Yeah, he. And I've watched a movie on him that was made back in, I think, the late 1930s that really paints out a tragic but complimentary viewpoint on him. But I don't have enough information on him to go, to right now to form a conclusion. And I know a lot of what the he did not have control over what the French were doing militarily, shall we say. I'm not saying he had zero influence or anything like that, but he was not so much the guy running the military show. He was more, like you say, hey, Richard of York, the Franco-Prussian War. Yes, absolutely. He was more the guy trying to run the political situation. And let's just give him a couple of weeks here. Get you a more reinforced. So, and as you're saying, Plastic Gangster. Well, he was a progressive member. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. As opposed to modern progressivism, most powerful ruling families of the time, which properly means he was something very different to what we would see. Oh yeah, and I would say enlightened might be the appropriate term. An enlightened ruler, to use the term maybe more appropriate to him, but. So, I think he wants to reform Mexico because Mexico, like I say to this day, is a very flawed society, including property owners and the peons and whatnot in Mexico then, and even to this day. Not nearly as bad today as it was back then. But I think he wants to reform the situation. And I think he doesn't quite understand the Mexican people's complete unwillingness to accept his leadership, shall we say. And I would put it in those terms. They were very unwilling to accept his leadership. So I don't think, however good his partially, I don't think they wanted to have a foreign monarch, and Benito Juarez as president was acceptable to them, and being not being elected and not a former and a foreign not a foreigner, but also his close ties to the French and the unpopularity of French invasion and the French method of, counterinsurgency or whatever type actions that just, are just unacceptable. So I see him as a well-meaning, and again, I don't maybe have a good read on him, but I see him as a well-meaning but misguided, and no practical way is he going to bring about good change for Mexico. However, I think he could have been good for Mexico. Sadly, with all of the historical tragedies, he was hammered in on all sides by other people and imperatives and other agendas. Yes. Well, and this all comes into, and this is what I love. I love playing these games here, and especially for you guys, because I get to talk about history, as you guys can tell I love doing. It all really ties into the whole progression, shall we say, of history. Not progressivism, but and not progress is better, but progress is moving down the road, if you will, or progression of events, shall we say, because you have the whole Maximilian tragedy is one of the other bricks that breaks the Bonapartists' support in France. But it also sets up the tragedy for the Habsburgs family. So when Archduke Ferdinand is later killed, that's sort of a second major tragedy for the Austrians that they're just enraged by, that lead to World War I, as well as the power balance shifting of the formation of the German Empire is also shifting things. So the Franco-Prussian War, the Mexican Franco-Mexican War, all of this, and the earlier, the Austro-Prussian War, earlier to this in the 1860s, all of this is all leading to World War I, which leads to World War II, which sets up the Cold War, and all of that stuff. It all sort of rolls and flows together very, very much. And I forget which, I was sort of in a panic getting started. Richard of York, what are you going to be playing for us in approximately 10 minutes? No, wait, there was a World War I. Yes, hello. Field of Glory 2, medieval? And that's just my guess. I was sort of in a panic. I got this game literally 6 minutes before. I got the code for the game 6 minutes before I started playing it. Oh, Flashpoint. Okay, Flashpoint. So yeah, I was sort of panic setting things up here. So yeah, so stay tuned for Flashpoint with Richard of York coming up, and I will take this moment here to. I know there's a few new people here. I'm Gamer1745. I love streaming for Slytherin, but I do have my own YouTube channel in which I do basically this is play historical games and talk about the history around them. You've got to at least like me blathering about history to want to listen to me for long term. But and I also stream mostly for myself on the weekends on my own channel there on Slytherin, or on Twitch TV. There if you want to hit the follow button, but don't leave. Like I say, Richard of York is coming up, and another good reason not to leave. I know Plastic Gangster knows this already, but the more you watch, you earn Slith coins, which can be turned in for free games and DLCs. If you want to find out the details of that, you can just scroll down a bit, and there's the Slith store, and there'll be the details on how all that works. So definitely don't go anywhere. Even if you're like not terribly interested, I don't know why you wouldn't be, but in Flashpoint. Oh no, I wish it was, like I say, I wish there was an intermediate zoom so between these two zoom things to get around. what are we doing for points? Okay. Now we're repeating ourselves, so I think we have just enough time to let the AI have its turn. It's pretty quick. Okay, celebrations of Saint Napoleon, Jour Saint Napoleon in Paris are poorly attended. Germany collects some MPP. In tribute to the last native emperor of Mexico. I did not know that. I didn't think they had any son. Okay, Emperor Napoleon III abdicates and leaves France. Republic is declared and the government of national defense is formed. And we get a land of air division. Okay, we will put you on the railways here. Now, I want to say from my readings of that, yes, it did happen, but not quite the conditions here. My and I don't know the time scale here. Got just a couple of minutes left. Moltke surrounds Metz. Napoleon III, just to be specific, forms another army to relieve Metz. That army's defeated. Napoleon is captured by the Prussians, the Germans. And then at that point is when and then eventually Metz surrenders. Somewhere after Napoleon III is captured, but before Metz surrenders is when the government of national defense is formed. So yes, okay, everyone. So like I say, stay tuned for